Alfred, the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild, coolly announces that starting today, he will be known as Ammon the Adventurer. His companion, Lisa, is utterly flabbergasted by the choice. She understands the need for an alias to avoid drawing attention to his real identity. However, she is bewildered by his specific decision. Lisa questions why, of all people, he would choose the name of the famous sage, Ammon. Alfred playfully suggests a title to go with it, the Sorcerer of White Porcelain, though Lisa protests he's not even wearing white. When Alfred offers the title to Thylos instead, he quickly declines. Lisa grows increasingly frantic, insisting that simply using Ammon's name won't be enough to divert attention from Alfred. Thylos calmly explains to Lisa that she misunderstands the situation. He clarifies that the real Ammon is a member of the Three Holy Sages and commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild, a man of genuine strength. Furthermore, Ammon has a reputation for being able to influence powerful figures in the imperial court and monster kind. This has led to him being recognized as a mysterious fixer of the underworld, a wild card to be feared. Thylos concludes that leveraging this fearsome reputation was all part of Master Alfred's intricate design. Thylos expresses his admiration for Master Alfred's incredible planning as Alfred considers altering his look to fit the persona. The group arrives at the Duran Bardo branch of the Adventurers Guild. An elven receptionist formally completes their registration, welcoming them to the guild. Alfred reappears in a new white and dark outfit, now perfectly embodying his new title, Ammon, the Sorcerer of White Porcelain. Lisa is surprised by the sudden change, while Alfred smugly asks if she has any more complaints. The guild receptionist informs them of a direct order from the guild master, a quest to exterminate a giant nethersteel bug. She hesitates, indicating there is more to discuss. In addition to the main quest, there are numerous other A-rank quests that have been accepted. The receptionist confronts Alfred, demanding to know why he has accepted 13 other quests on top of the main extermination mission. Lisa is shocked by his audacity, wondering what he could possibly be thinking. Alfred nonchalantly reminds her that they are there to cause a scene. He explains that he is simply fulfilling her previous request to prove his strength. The receptionist, though annoyed, seems willing to let it go if he offers a heartfelt apology. Alfred explains that while he has the branch master's confidence, he needs to build up his own prestige to avoid future trouble. The receptionist acknowledges his motive, but her patience is wearing thin. She points out that accepting so many difficult quests, all due within 3 days of a major collaborative extermination, is unheard of. Her patience finally snaps, and she explodes with anger, reminding him that guild quests are not child's play. The receptionist scoffs, saying she will be ready to laugh in his face when he inevitably fails his quests. She privately thinks he's just another arrogant blowhard trying to show off and believes she has a rotten personality for enjoying it. Unfazed, Alfred simply tells his companions to handle it. His quiet command catches the receptionist completely off guard. With unwavering confidence, Alfred looks the receptionist in the eye and repeats his statement, "They can handle it." His intense gaze and absolute certainty leave her completely stunned and speechless. Recovering from her shock, the receptionist becomes flustered and angry. She declares that she will thoroughly document that he ignored her warnings and accepted an unreasonable number of quests. She slams her hands on the counter, vowing that he will receive no leniency and will be held responsible for every failure. Alfred's party simply thanks her for confirming the terms and turns to leave. As they depart, she yells after them that failure will result in a hefty fine. As they walk along the Bardo Road toward the mines, Lisa expresses her concern. She asks Alfred if it was really necessary to provoke the receptionist by accepting all those quests, and he confirms that it was. He explains that as newcomers, they can't afford to be treated like outcasts, but more importantly, he has a larger goal in mind. Alfred reveals his true intention, to use this opportunity to make the name Ammon as famous as possible. Lisa is confused, thinking the alias was meant to keep a low profile. Alfred clarifies that the more famous Ammon becomes, the more useful he will be in the upcoming war against the monster kind. He reflects that monster kind has always been humanity's archenemy, and relying on the Empire's forces alone may not be enough. Alfred declares his intent to fight the monster kind with the full, united force of humanity, surpassing national borders. This, he states, is a battle for all humankind. A sudden realization dawns on Thylos. He begins to grasp the sheer scale of his master's plan, much to Lisa's confusion. Thylos understands what Master Alfred is truly planning. Thylos lays out Alfred's grand strategy to turn Ammon into a legendary hero, and use his fame to forge an anti-monster-kind alliance. Alfred confirms Thylos's deduction is correct. Lisa finally understands that this was the reason he took on so many high-difficulty quests at the guild. Despite understanding, she still has reservations. Lisa points out the sheer impossibility of completing 13 quests in just 3 days, a task that would normally take an adventurer days for just one. Alfred assures her it's all within his calculations, revealing his plan to split the group into teams. He explains that Team A with Princess Ruja and Leopold will handle one quest, while Team B, consisting of Thylos, Leza and Deathblaze, will take 2. Alfred concludes his explanation. Team C, consisting only of himself, will handle the remaining 10 quests. He confidently states that with this plan, completing all 13 quests will be no issue, and that Team A is already on its way. Seeing their worried faces, he cheekily offers to help with Team B's quests if they're concerned. Lisa sighs, having suspected that this was his intention all along. Lisa realizes that Alfred is truly planning on doing most of the work himself, suspecting he could probably do it all alone with ease. She tells him it's nothing and that she'll do her best so he can focus, but she can't help but call his strategy less of a plan and more of just brute forcing the issue. In the Kaldovine village, the elder Nola explains that her people have been attacked multiple times by the Bloodchain gang. She elaborates that with the royal army busy elsewhere, the bandits are taking full advantage of their vulnerability. Ammon correctly deduces that this predicament is what led her to seek help from the Adventurers Guild. Nola sizes up Ammon, expressing her doubts about him handling a group of A-rank criminals alone, given his youth and seemingly average build. With a steely gaze, Ammon simply replies that he is confident in his abilities. Ammon checks his pocket watch, noting that it is currently 4 p.m. He asks for the bandits' hideout, and Nola confirms they have a base on the village outskirts. She adds that the bandits don't even care that the village watch is monitoring their movements. As Ammon immediately turns to leave, Nola asks where he is going, and he cryptically states that he is in a hurry. With a determined smirk, Ammon strides away, making a bold promise to resolve the situation in 1 hour. Nola is left completely stunned, staring after him in disbelief. An hour passes. Nola waits anxiously, trying to convince herself that Ammon only meant he'd finish his preparations in an hour, perhaps by investigating the thieves' camp. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the building. Startled by the blast and the sound of the door opening, she whirls around, demanding to know what happened. Ammon stands in the doorway and calmly announces that the job is done. As Nola struggles to comprehend, he invites her to go outside and verify it with her own eyes. She rushes out, her expression turning to one of shock. Looking toward the bandits' camp, she sees a scene of utter devastation and billowing smoke. The Bloodchain gang of thieves has been completely exterminated, leaving only a smoldering crater where their hideout once stood. Nola turns to Ammon, demanding to know how he could have possibly accomplished such a feat in only an hour. Ammon nonchalantly explains that he simply used one Meteo Fall spell to wipe them out, which leaves Nola utterly speechless. She had low expectations, assuming all high-ranking adventurers were busy with the monster issue at the mines. She thinks to herself that Ammon's power has surpassed anything she could have possibly imagined. As she begins to offer her gratitude, Ammon politely cuts her off, reminding her that he is in a hurry. Ammon reiterates that he is in a hurry and only asks that she sign the document confirming the quest's completion. Meanwhile, back at the Adventurers Guild, the elven receptionist broods over the adventurer known as Ammon, the sorcerer of white porcelain, still in disbelief that he accepted 13 A-rank quests on his first day. The receptionist's frustration mounts, feeling there should be a limit to the ridicule she has to endure. She believes it's the guild's duty to teach arrogant newbies their proper place in the pecking order. Her eyes land on a brooding adventurer sitting alone. She approaches him and calls out his name, Marcus. She asks Marcus what he thinks of the so-called sorcerer of white porcelain. Marcus explodes with anger, recounting how he was forced to kowtow to a group of brats. Seeing they share the same resentment, her expression turns sinister as she proposes they teach them a lesson. Marcus asks how they would do that, and the receptionist suggests a form of guidance from their seniors. The receptionist outlines her malicious plan. During their quest, a nest of monsters could just happen to become agitated, creating a learning experience for them. Marcus understands she wants him to take on the same quest and mess things up for them. He points out the obvious risk: if things go wrong, the adventurers could die. The receptionist clarifies that Marcus is to rescue them just before the worst happens, which will shatter their reputation and ensure they can never defy him again. Marcus realizes she's just as furious as he is over having to apologize to them. He smirks and agrees to her plan, ready to give them a hell of a learning experience. The receptionist chuckles, pleased with his response. With their deal sealed, the scene shifts to a desolate landscape. Elsewhere, Princess Ryuja is in the middle of a battle, her arrow finding its mark on a monstrous creature. Ryuja shouts that she has crushed the monster's eye, creating an opening. Her companion, Leopold, roars his approval and leaps forward. He brings his massive sword down on the creature in a powerful strike. As the monster falls, Ryuja praises Leopold for his splendid work. He deflects the compliment, attributing their success to her skill as the top warrior of the Zaragatos tribe. After the battle, Ryuja asks Leopold if he's heard about Lisa's team and their quest. He confirms that the adventurer Marcus was added to their group, and admits this news has him slightly worried. Ryuja, however, seems completely unconcerned about this development. Yawning nonchalantly, Ryuja dismisses his concerns, confidently stating there's no need to worry because their team is being led by General Deathblaze, one of the 5 divine generals of battle. In a dark, gnarled forest, the veteran adventurer Marcus announces the group's rank quest to defeat an ancient lich. Confident in his own abilities, he declares that leaving the task to the younger adventurers would only lead to casualties, so he will be taking the lead. Ignoring Marcus, Lisa asks Ammon, whom she calls Thylos, for his assessment of the situation. Marcus seethes internally, enraged at being called a fool by the young adventurer. Ammon's eyes glow as he begins to scan the area for undead. He reports the presence of 22 skeleton-type undead hidden in the thicket ahead. Ammon revises his count, adding 1 more skeleton to the total. Marcus is stunned by their claims. Ammon further specifies that there are 5 whites and that none of the undead have noticed their presence yet, much to Alfred's surprise. Frustrated, Marcus questions what the group is talking about as he is unable to sense a single enemy. Marcus begins to suspect their abilities might be genuine, recalling Ammon's title as the Sorcerer of White Porcelain and guessing they have a knack for detection magic. Marcus questions their earlier assessment, but Alfred eagerly suggests a direct assault on the undead she senses. Ammon calmly intervenes, explaining that a frontal attack would draw all enemies to them, and proposes using stealth magic to sneak past undetected. Lisa praises Ammon's suggestion as the perfect answer, agreeing that they shouldn't exhaust themselves needlessly. Marcus grows more furious as the group completely ignores him. With a plan set, Lisa declares it's time to proceed toward the ruined manor in the distance. As they approach the dilapidated building, Lisa identifies it as the ancient lich's dwelling. Marcus smirks, thinking he understands their plan. Suddenly, he feels his foot press down on something hidden, triggering a faint glow beneath him. Alfred spots the shining magic circle under Marcus's foot as Ammon explains that liches often set traps. Lisa tells Marcus not to blame himself as Ammon identifies the trap as a switch to reanimate nearby corpses. Alfred thinks simple skeletons will be pushovers, and Ammon agrees with her assessment. But Marcus cuts in, his voice grim. He tells them they'd be right if the corpses were those of normal humans. With a sinister smile, Marcus reveals that a B-rank adventuring party recently died in this area and their bodies were never recovered. As he speaks, skeletal hands burst from the ground. Alfred shouts that the dead are already rising and that they must finish them off quickly. Ammon quickly identifies the new threats, telling Lisa to focus her attention on them. The reanimated corpses are skeleton captains, a fact that surprises Ammon. He realizes that high-ranking adventurers must have met their end here. Marcus laughs, declaring that such foes are beyond the party's abilities. He boasts that he is the only one present who can handle them. Lisa smirks, telling Marcus that the skeleton captains aren't the only surprise in store. Marcus's eyes widen in shock. A far more imposing figure emerges from the shadows, a fully armored undead commander. Marcus stares in horror at the imposing undead commander. He recognizes that it's an undead made from a hero-class corpse. The realization that such a monster is beyond even his abilities sends him crumbling to the ground in terror. In stark contrast, Lisa rallies Ammon and Alfred for battle. They both agree, readying themselves without a hint of fear. Ammon and Alfred unleash blasts of magic at the skeleton captains. Meanwhile, Lisa and Alfred move in to engage the remaining undead in close-quarters combat. Lisa effortlessly dodges the undead commander's attacks. She pivots and leaps high into the air, positioning herself directly above the towering foe for a decisive strike. With a savage grin, Lisa descends upon the undead commander, her hands gripping its skull. She applies immense pressure, crushing the bone with a sickening crack. She rips the commander's head from its body. Lisa tosses the head aside dismissively. The commander's headless body collapses. With the threat neutralized, she calmly instructs the others to proceed to the manor, leaving a shell-shocked Marcus sitting on the ground. Left behind, Marcus screams in utter confusion, demanding to know what just happened. Meanwhile, back at the guild office, a shocking report arrives. The elven receptionist stares in disbelief at a pile of documents on her desk. The receptionist is stunned to see reports confirming the completion of multiple A-rank quests, including the defeat of the Golem of Lament. Just then, a colleague rushes in with news from Kaldevin village. She asks if the Bloodchin thieves have been defeated as well. The colleague explains that defeated is an understatement. The area was wiped off the map and reduced to ash. Another guild member clarifies that it was the work of a single Meteo Fall spell. The receptionist is utterly flabbergasted by the mention of such powerful magic. A senior guild member overhears and realizes that the party's confidence wasn't arrogance but backed by the ability to wield extreme-tier magic. The receptionist stares in horror, finally understanding the scale of their power and demanding to know what they are. In a parallel moment of terror, Marcus screams the same question, utterly baffled by the power he has just witnessed. Inside the Adventurers Guild, a weary Marcus tries to get receptionist Lisa's attention, telling her he's just witnessed something insane. Lisa cuts him off, stating she's already received the carrier pigeon report. She confirms the news that the sorcerer of White Porcelain's party has exterminated the ancient Lich. Marcus agrees, but insists that's not the truly insane part. He reveals that the party didn't just defeat the Lich, they obliterated its entire nest in a single devastating attack. Standing amid the fiery aftermath, his companions worry about the legal ramifications of blowing up an entire building, but Marcus decides to report the widespread destruction as a minor accident to the guild. Marcus laments that even having seen it himself, he still can't believe it. Lisa believes him, noting a mountain of reports corroborating similar incredible feats. Exasperated, Marcus sighs, admitting they made total fools of themselves. Lisa chuckles, agreeing that if newbie adventurers could run them ragged like that, it's their complete loss. Marcus declares this marks the end of his time as the newbie harasser, and Lisa's as the freshman tormentor. He concedes that Ammon's party has proven that even newcomers can become heroes, possessing the potential to be a legendary adventuring party. Both he and Lisa come to the same conclusion: they are true adventurers, the kind destined to carve their names into history. Their melancholic moment is interrupted by the arrival of the guild master. Marcus and Lisa are shocked by his sudden appearance. The guild master smiles, welcoming Marcus back from his quest. He then casually mentions that he just received a complaint. The guild master reads the complaint aloud, quoting that Marcus forcibly accompanying the party was a nuisance. Marcus freezes in horror at the accusation. The guild master notes that he made it clear no one was to interfere, which would have been impossible without Lisa's assistance. Lisa jolts with fear, hiding behind her desk. With a terrifyingly cheerful smile, the guild master asks Marcus and Lisa for an acceptable excuse for their actions. The two of them can only sweat and panic, completely unable to respond. Screams echo from the guild hall. Meanwhile, a large group of adventurers has assembled for a joint extermination quest. A guild staff member announces their location, the vast Duranbardo's mine network. The guild staff explains that a ferocious monster occupies the mine's depths, a threat too great for a single party, necessitating a large-scale raid. Looking over the intimidating landscape, a young adventurer takes in the scene. The gathered adventurers murmur amongst themselves, noting that first-rate adventurers have been gathered from all over for this raid. Alfred is intimidated by the sheer number of people, while Ammon quietly observes. The staff member prepares to announce the participating parties. First, the guild staff calls out the adventuring party Black Fang. The crowd recognizes them as a newcomer group that quickly reached upper A rank, with their leader boasting they're already on par with S rank. Next, the guild staff announces the arrival of the adventuring party Crimson Banner. The crowd buzzes with excitement, recognizing Crimson Banner as an S-rank party, among the strongest of all adventurers. They identify Grant Eisen, the Steel King, a walking fortress who crushes everything in his path. They also spot Iris Flareheart, the Crimson Princess, whom many are seeing in person for the first time. The guild staff announces that as the highest-ranking adventurers, Crimson Banner will take command of on-field assignments. Alfred whispers to Ammon about all the amazing people present. Just then the staff calls the next name, Ammon, the sorcerer of White Porcelain's adventuring party, causing Ammon to flinch. Alfred worries they'll be made fun of for being kids again. However, the crowd's reaction is one of awe, with one adventurer recognizing the name. An adventurer recognizes one of Ammon's companions as Deathblaze, a member of the legendary party Celestial Tiger's 5 Claws from decades ago. Another adventurer adds that he's heard every member of their party is monstrously powerful. Alfred is surprised that the other adventurers know who they are. An adventurer explains that while they may look like kids, their strength is something else entirely. He reveals he heard all about it from Marcus at the tavern. Alfred reacts with exasperation at the mention of Marcus's name. The adventurer explains that receptionist Lisa also talked about them while drowning her sorrows, having faced serious repercussions for underestimating them. Alfred is shocked to hear that Lisa was involved too. Ammon just smirks quietly. He tells a confused Alfred it's nothing as the guild staff prepares to continue the briefing. Ammon smirks to himself, pleased that his plan to make the real Ammon's name famous is proceeding smoothly, and thinks they should show him a great windfall of achievements. Alfred, however, has a feeling the real Ammon will be holding his head in pain, rather than feeling happy about this. Nearby, a fellow member of Crimson Banner notices Grant Eisen seems troubled, and asks him what's wrong. Grant mutters the name Ammon to himself. He quickly dismisses his thoughts as overthinking, and tells his companion it's nothing, suggesting they begin the briefing. Internally, however, he scoffs at the idea that the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild, Ammon, would bother coming to such a remote region. Inside a command tent, the leaders of the Crimson Banner party begin their briefing for the raid. Iris Flareheart explains their target, the queen of the giant nethersteel bugs, a massive ant-type monster. She notes that the queen resides deep within the nest, protected by numerous soldiers. Grant Eisen confirms this, adding that according to Lily's earlier scouting, there are 5 rooms surrounding the queen's chamber, each housing tough guard general ants and tons of soldiers. Iris realizes that even a diversion near the entrance would only attract endless droves of regular soldiers, leaving the queen's personal guard untouched. Grant agrees, stating they'll be hard-pressed to approach her, prompting Lily to ask what their plan is. Iris explains that while their enemies are numerous and well-coordinated under the queen, they lack the manpower to fight them all. She clarifies their priority. They will first eliminate the queen, which will cripple the soldiers' coordination and remove their magical boost. Her plan is to cause a commotion near the entrance to lure out the soldiers, then use the opening to enter the nest. Grant points out a flaw, noting the elite guards will likely remain at their posts even with a disturbance. He fears that a direct assault on the queen would get them surrounded. Iris reveals her solution. They will divide into 6 teams. Lily questions this, worried it will weaken their forces, while Iris retorts that with 5 guard rooms they have little choice. Still confused, Lily asks why 6 teams are needed for 5 rooms. Iris explains that 5 teams will handle the guard rooms, while their own Crimson Banner will handle the Queen's room. When Grant asks about the other parties, Iris bluntly declares they will eliminate the Queen by themselves. Iris states that with their party's power, A-rank adventurers are out of the question, and even average S-rank adventurers would only slow them down. Grant, however, isn't so sure. Lily enthusiastically agrees with Iris, declaring that everyone else is weak compared to them. Grant specifies his concern, mentioning Ammon's party and the legendary adventurer in their ranks. Lily excitedly identifies her as Deathblaze. Iris dismisses the legend as a half-century-old tale, likely embellished over time. Grant suggests they postpone finalizing their teams until they can confirm the other party's abilities. However, their leader, Leonhard Valdius, interjects, reminding them that it is almost time for the operation to begin. Iris argues against any delay, pointing out that the nethersteel bugs grow more aggressive each day, and waiting would force them to postpone the raid entirely. Grant concedes her point. He turns to Lily for her opinion. Lily, flustered, admits she is not sure either, but exclaims that she hates waiting. Having stated his case, Grant leaves the final decision to his leader, Leonhard. Leonhard rises and summarizes the situation into 3 established facts. He states that first, their deadline is set, and second, the true ability of the sorcerer of White Porcelain's party is unknown. His third and final fact is a simple declaration: they are mighty. With this display of confidence in his team, the decision is made. Alfred is shocked to learn they'll be acting as sub-members of the attack team, while the girls are disappointed, believing they weren't trusted enough despite having Deathblaze. Ammon explains their role is to wait in the depths as reinforcements. He points out that this role shows a measure of faith in their abilities as they weren't relegated to the diversion team. Deathblaze is offended at being denied an active role, calling the other party self-important. Ammon, however, calmly states he has no issue with the decision, considering it fortunate that they were rated so positively with such little information. He thinks to himself that it would be a problem if these living legends were on the same level as the corrupt lords he plans to recruit them to fight against. A sharp whistle blast cuts through the air, startling some of the adventurers. A guild staff member thanks the adventurers for their patience. She announces that the raid into the mines will now begin. Ammon smirks, noting that their time for talk has come to an end. The diversion unit is instructed to enter the nest first, prioritizing their safety until the queen is defeated. As the group enters the mines, Iris observes that the surrounding ants should now be drawn to the entrance. Despite the plan proceeding, Grant can't shake a feeling of strange anxiety. A moment later, a loud explosion erupts from within. Deathblaze notes that the diversion appears to have begun. Iris activates her detection magic. Her eye glows as she confirms the bugs are falling for the ruse. With the enemy distracted, she gives the command for the attack teams to enter the nest through a separate route. With a rallying cry from Lily to move out, Iris encourages the adventurers to exterminate the pests and make some coin. The combined forces charge forward into the mine, ready for battle. Inside a grand carriage, General Levitain recalls her true objective, to journey to the long-forgotten underground imperial city of the dwarves, the gateway from which her people first came. Her carriage, pulled by a demonic steed, thunders across the landscape. Inside the opulent carriage, the young boy Sigurd gazes out the window, feeling nostalgic for the human realm after so long in the capital. Levitain notes his enjoyment of the trip. Sigurd enthusiastically agrees that he is indeed enjoying himself. Her masked servant watches in disbelief, wondering how the boy can be so nonchalant while in the presence of the formidable General Levitain. The servant worries for the general, who seems anxious over the missing Beelzebub and has brought along a mere child for a flimsy reason. Sigurd, oblivious, turns to Levitain and questions the wisdom of a high-ranking general like her traveling on an expedition with so few people. The servant internally panics, calling Sigurd a fool for questioning a decision that Levitain herself had made. The servant fears that the general might take this as disrespect, but instead Levitain laughs, calling Sigurd kind for his concern. Sigurd bows, explaining he was simply worried it would be inconvenient for her. The servant is shocked by the general's uncharacteristic behavior. Delighted, Levitain playfully rubs his cheek, declaring that Big Sis Leave gives him full marks for his kindness, leaving Sigurd stunned. The servant watches the convoy of carriages below, confused by the general's unusual behavior. Levitain falls silent, her expression becoming serious. She reflects that while a small retinue is inconvenient, her mission requires her to be inconspicuous. If word got out that she was fearful of someone like Ammon, her position among the 100 generals would be questioned. Her fist clenches as she silently vows to never forgive the wretched Ammon. The servant misinterprets this, believing the general is merely upset. The servant concludes that the general plans to toy with Sigurd's hopes before punishing him. Levitain then beckons Sigurd to come closer. As the oblivious boy agrees, the servant trembles, certain that he is walking to his doom. But instead of violence, Levitain pulls Sigurd into an embrace, doting on him and calling him adorable. The servant is utterly bewildered by this turn of events, unable to comprehend why she is still spoiling him. Getting to business, Levitain asks Sigurd if he knows about the situation at their destination, Duran Bardo. Sigurd reports that giant nethersteel bugs are causing trouble, and famous adventurers have been gathered to exterminate them. Levitain scoffs at the idea of mere adventurers handling the situation. As Sigurd questions her reaction, she playfully bites his ear. She then reveals a dark secret. She has dispelled the seal on a primordial beast deep within the mines, and its overflowing mana has surely strengthened the monsters, making them impossible for humans to defeat. The thought of the empowered monsters fills her with satisfaction, knowing they would be impossible for mere humans to defeat. She then turns her attention to her servant. The servant snaps to attention, responding immediately. With Sigurd on her lap, Levitain coldly asks the servant why they are still there, questioning if they cannot see that she is about to engage in an affair. The servant is left utterly speechless and confused. Without another word, a flash of steel sends the servant's head rolling. Levitain dismisses the subordinate for lacking proper manners. As Sigurd stares in shock, his heart pounding. Levitain turns to him with a predatory smile and asks if they should have some fun. Meanwhile, deep within the mines, a group of adventurers is engaged in their mission. One of them spots Ammon's party approaching. They question their presence, noting that the battle hasn't even begun, and that Ammon's team is supposed to only reinforce collapsing teams. Lisa sweats nervously, unsure how to explain Ammon's reasoning without offending them. Ammon steps forward, silencing their questions with a simple declaration, because he said so. He tells them to stop troubling his Lisa with their pesky questions. The comment causes her to blush. As he asks her what's wrong, she shyly says it's nothing, though her heart skipped a beat at his possessive tone. The other adventurers are taken aback by his sudden arrival and authoritative demeanor. Suddenly, a swarm of giant ants descends upon them, leaving them surrounded. The leader tries to rally his team, confident in their S and A rank members, but he quickly realizes something is terribly wrong. The adventurers are horrified to see captain-class giant ants among the swarm. The plan had only accounted for a single general ant, but now they face commanders and high commanders as well. The female adventurer panics, realizing there are 4 general ants when there should only be 1. The situation is impossible, they can't possibly win. Ammon calmly remarks that their cries of impossible mean his prediction has come true. He reminds the stunned adventurer of his earlier question about why they were there. Ammon explains that while the Crimson Banner may have thought they divided the teams evenly, this particular team was obviously lacking in strength. With a powerful strike, Ammon obliterates one of the giant ants, declaring that his party is here precisely to compensate for that weakness. Wiping his blade clean, Ammon smirks and announces that it's time to get the pest extermination going. The other adventurers can only gape in utter disbelief at the turn of events. Before the Queen Ant's room, the mage Iris is in disbelief. The plan was simple. A diversion team would draw the main forces, leaving the Queen vulnerable. But the chamber is swarming with powerful ants. The cat-like Lily notes that it's not just their numbers, but the quality of the troops that far exceeds their expectations. With their plan in shambles, Iris resolves to attack with full force. She begins to chant, gathering immense power into her staff, determined to obliterate her enemies. Unleashing her ultimate spell, she casts Astral Inferno, bathing the cavern in destructive light. Lily cheers, certain that Iris's extreme tier spell has annihilated the enemy. But Iris, panting from the exertion, reveals the spell cost her entire mana pool. As the smoke clears, their hope turns to horror. A large, formidable ant has survived the blast, and it screeches very much alive. Iris can only stare in disbelief, realizing she can't be serious. The surviving ant lunges at the defenseless Iris. In a flash of steel, the party's defender, Aizen, intercepts the attack with his shield, saving her just in time. Iris stammers her thanks, shaken but safe. Aizen dismisses her thanks, reminding her that they are comrades. Iris points out their dire situation, as over 10 ants survived her spell. Aizen tells her not to worry, they can leave the rest to Leonhardt, who will handle it as he always does. Just as Aizen predicted, Leonhardt leaps into the fray, effortlessly cutting down the general-class ants. Lily watches in awe, exclaiming that he's chopping them up as if they were made of paper. Aizen explains their team's dynamic. Lily scouts, Iris thins the enemy ranks with her magic, and he protects them both. Finally, Leonhardt steps in to cut down the remaining foes. This, Aizen says, is how they have always fought their battles. After the battle, Iris approaches Leonhardt with a question that's been on her mind. She wonders if he could have just fought them all by himself. She feels silly in comparison, dead on her feet after one spell while he seems completely fine. Leonhardt listens to her quietly. He simply replies that what she suggests is not true. Leonhardt explains that he is only able to use his full abilities as the party's sword, thanks to everyone's contributions. He credits Lily's scouting abilities. He acknowledges Iris's instantaneous destructive power. And he praises Aizen's defensive capabilities, declaring them all irreplaceable. Iris is glad to hear it, but she remembers his past as a solo adventurer. She reminds him that he used to charge into battle alone, no matter the risk, and always managed to complete the job by himself. Leonhardt admits that's how he used to fight in his younger days, but he trails off. He decides to drop the subject, leaving Iris curious. He then announces that the Queen's nest is just ahead. He calls for a short 5-minute rest, planning to begin the final assault once Iris has recovered enough to use her magic again. As the party rests, Leonhardt reflects that Iris was right. If he were still his old self, he would have charged in alone without a thought for his allies' preparations. His mind drifts back 5 years to a difficult mission in the Abyss Labyrinth. 5 years ago, in the deepest area of the labyrinth, he faced the arena of Samalrith, Seraph of the Eight Lights. It was the first time he was ever bested by a monster. He was completely outmatched. He recalls the foe's incomprehensible abilities, overwhelming strength, and soul-crushing magical power. Just as he was about to be defeated, a single man appeared and obliterated the godlike foe in an instant with an extreme-tier magic spell, Longinus Bullet. A younger, battered Leonhardt could only stare in shock. His savior was Cedric, the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild, who casually asked if his assistance was unnecessary. That encounter changed Leonhardt's life forever. Cedric was a peerless master of every field, boasting unmatched prowess in all forms of combat. He was the ideal every solo adventurer aspired to be. Desperate, Leonhardt cried out for him to wait. Leonhardt explained his desire to learn how to defeat Seraph Samalrith solo. He bowed deeply, begging Cedric to teach him his ways. Cedric gave a simple, maddening answer: just do as he did. Leonhardt protested that he wouldn't be asking for guidance if he could do that, and Cedric conceded the point. Cedric then asked a crucial question: is there a need to do everything by yourself? He advised Leonhardt that there are some feats one cannot achieve alone, and that finding allies is another way to grow stronger. Cedric added that there's no shame in it, as even he might one day need help. Leonhardt could only laugh, unable to imagine someone like Cedric ever needing assistance. Back in the present, Leonhardt chuckles to himself, thinking that Cedric would not need help in a single lifetime. Iris announces she has recovered and is ready to go. Leonhardt wonders if Sir Cedric ever found comrades he could entrust his life to before he passed away. Looking at his own party, he realizes he has. With renewed determination, he announces that the adventuring party Crimson Banner will now begin their raid against the Queen Ant. Having cleared the path, Leonhardt and the Crimson Banner arrive before a glowing, ruined archway, which he identifies as the Queen's Nest. Leonhardt confidently steps forward, ready to proceed with the raid. However, Iris calls out, asking her leader to wait for a moment. Iris asks if they plan to broadcast the upcoming battle. When Lily seems confused, she explains that first-class adventurers use communication crystal orbs to stream their exploits to advertise their skills. Leonhardt confirms they will broadcast as usual, seeing no issue as the raid involves no confidential matters. Iris voices her concern, worried about the risk of public embarrassment if another unexpected event occurs. Leonhardt counters that this is precisely why they should broadcast it. He believes the pressure of a live audience will force them to execute the raid flawlessly from beginning to end. He asks if she agrees that pushing themselves to their limits will be met with an equal payoff. Eisen and Lily watch as their teammates come to an agreement. Convinced by her leader's reasoning, Iris agrees and activates the broadcast with a butterfly-shaped drone. Meanwhile, in a lavish castle, Duke Robert notes that the Chancellor looks quite pale. Duke Robert, looking unwell, admits he is still suffering the aftereffects of torture, despite being physically healed. He insists it is no time to dwell on such matters. His associate, August, calmly considers their next move now that their coup has failed. Enraged, Duke Robert slams his hand on the table and declares their next move must be to eliminate Sir Ammon. Duke Robert finds it hard to believe the rumors that Sir Ammon has the backing of the Kings of Hell. August calmly acknowledges that forcing one of the 100 generals to retreat from the capital was no small feat. However, he slyly suggests that one could argue Sir Ammon's actions actually saved them. The Duke erupts in anger, questioning August's sanity and claiming that everything was part of Ammon's master plan. Duke Robert questions just how long they have been dancing in the palm of Ammon's hand, recalling the assignment of Brim Cross and the arrest of nobles. He wonders if the plan extends as far back as Algren's failed raid on the Dragon People village. The Duke screams that he feels Ammon was behind all of those events and that they were completely at his mercy the entire time. August calmly agrees that Sir Ammon's cunning knows no bounds. He concludes that to gain control of the Empire, they have no other choice but to rid themselves of Sir Ammon. The Duke retorts that it's not so simple, reminding August that Ammon is the strongest man in the Empire, the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild. August smirks, pointing out that Ammon is merely the strongest person within the Empire. Duke Robert rustles, demanding to know what he's trying to say. August places a crystal orb on the table and tells him to take a look. The Duke stares intently as an image forms within the orb. The orb displays the broadcast from the Crimson Banner, whom the Duke recognizes as the legendary adventuring party. The Duke protests that they have no time to watch adventurers fight monsters, but August insists they should. August explains that the world is vast, and there are exceptions to Ammon's power. He posits that just as Cedric was once the strongest, Ammon is merely one of humanity's current strongest, and the Crimson Banner is another. August notes that since Ammon was the one who poisoned Cedric, he likely won't fall for a similar trick. Duke Robert, horrified, realizes August's true intention to hire the Crimson Banner to assassinate Sir Ammon. August mentions that the party has a ninja proficient in assassination arts, making them a suitable choice. The Duke protests, doubting that such a famous party would accept dirty work. August lays out his plan. First, offer a large sum of money. If that doesn't work, they can take family members hostage. If even that fails, he is prepared to use every single one of their blood relatives as bargaining chips. He concludes that everyone has a weakness, and anything is on the table to achieve their goal. Duke Robert, now smirking, concedes that it is a flawless plan, just as he would expect from August. Holding the crystal orb aloft, August declares that they will now observe the full capabilities of the newest members of their cause, the Crimson Banner. A powerful, rhythmic thumping echoes through the cavern. The members of Crimson Banner stand ready, their expressions tense as they face the source of the ominous sound. The pulsing sound emanates from the grotesque, fleshy walls of the nest. Within a vast, crystalline chamber, a monstrous, armored creature stands guard before the adventuring party. Lily wonders aloud if this monstrous creature is the queen. Suddenly, a humanoid figure emerges, declaring herself the queen of the colony and warning them not to harm her prince. Eisen grimaces at the sinister miasma filling the air, noting that his bad premonitions have come true. The party confronts the enormous monster, as Lily declares there's nothing to worry about. Using her detection ability, Lily confirms that the queen is strong. However, her analysis indicates that Iris's Astral Inferno spell can secure their victory. Eisen is impressed by Lily's incredible use of her detection skill. Leonhardt affirms that this information is exactly what they needed to form a plan. Leonhardt commands the team to execute Combat Pattern D and Formation H. In perfect unison, Iris and the others roar their agreement, ready to spring into action. The Queen unleashes a powerful fiery attack called Volcano Breath. She declares her intent to eliminate one of the adventurers first. Leonhardt shouts a warning to Eisen. Eisen braces himself for the impact, fully aware of the incoming danger. The Queen's attack hurtles forward with destructive force. Leonhardt steps in front of Eisen and summons a massive magical shield, the Eisen Bastion, to block the blast. Iris declares she will give it everything she has, gathering immense magical energy. She chants to let the flames of damnation rain upon her foes. The Queen watches, seemingly unimpressed. Iris unleashes her ultimate spell, Astral Inferno, sending a colossal torrent of destructive energy hurtling toward the Queen. The Queen reveals she witnessed their previous struggles against her children. As Iris realizes the attack wasn't enough, the Queen mocks her, questioning if she truly thought a spell that failed against her offspring could harm her. The Queen reveals she knows that Iris can only use such a powerful spell once. Iris grits her teeth in frustration. The Queen recalls hearing Lily's claim that the spell would be enough to defeat her. She erupts in laughter, calling them clueless for believing such a thing. Iris smirks, asking who the truly clueless one is. The Queen is momentarily taken aback. Iris clarifies that Lily never said it would only take one Astral Inferno to win. She explains that while most mages can only cast the spell once, there are exceptions. Iris reveals she is part of the 1% and asks if it wasn't an impressive way to make her drop her guard. The Queen realizes their conversation was a deliberate scheme, which Iris confirms. Iris explains that Lily had noticed the Queen eavesdropping on them. Unfazed, the Queen retorts that the spell was far too weak to endanger her. Iris casts Astral Inferno once more. The Queen confidently crosses her arms, ready to deflect it. However, the magical projectiles crumble midair. Iris appears exhausted after the cast. The Queen laughs, mocking the failed attempt to even reach her. Leonhardt faces the Queen, his blade now glowing. The Queen's expression changes to one of shock. She realizes the remaining embers from the spell are enveloping his blade. He grits his teeth, preparing to unleash a powerful magic slash. With the power of the embers fueling his attack, Leonhardt leaps into the air and brings his sword down, unleashing the ultimate combined technique, Astral Blaze. The attack slices through the Queen's arm, defeating her. Leonhardt watches grimly as the attack connects. Iris explains that a blade containing their party's collective power was more than enough to end her life. Lily winks, smugly remarking that just as she said, Iris's astral inferno helped them win the fight. With the battle over, Leonhardt offers his thanks to Ammon and his party for their assistance. Ammon acknowledges their gratitude, remarking that he didn't expect them to aid all the extermination teams. An aide gets everyone's attention. She reports that her detection ability picked up a gigantic magical signal, disappearing in the deepest area. Hearing this, the other teams erupt in cheers, believing the Queen has been exterminated. They praise the Crimson Banner for their incredible feat. But Ammon's expression remains grim. He knows it's not over yet. Ammon orders all teams to withdraw from the caves and regroup near the entrance to brace for an assault. The other adventurers are confused by the order. He delivers a grave warning. A monster stampede is coming, as the Queen intends to abandon her nest. Standing over her defeated foe, Iris declares the battle to be over. With a final, determined glare, she announces that it is time for the Queen to meet her end. A massive, pulsing egg catches their attention. Eisen nervously asks what the strange object is. The grievously wounded Queen explains that the egg contains her true progeny, the one destined to become the next generation's ruler. Iris, completely drained of mana, desperately yells for Leonhardt to destroy the egg. He realizes that if the Queen is telling the truth, the creature inside could be even stronger than she is. The Queen simply laughs, mocking their intent to destroy it. The Queen informs the shocked party that they are too late. She holds up the contents of the shattered egg, revealing that the child is still just a fetus, nowhere near mature enough to hatch. With a horrifying grin, the Queen opens her monstrous maw and devours the fetus whole. The party, Eisen, Leonhardt, Iris, and Lily, can only watch in absolute shock and disgust, unable to believe what they're seeing. As the group cries out that she's eating her own child, the Queen begins to morph into a new, powerful form. She announces her decision to abandon the nest now that its location has been discovered. She explains that she will use all her offspring as a smokescreen to cover her escape. The transformed Queen coldly elaborates on her plan. Her forces will attack the surrounding towns and villages, creating a living hell for the humans. Under the cover of this chaos, she will move to a new land and give birth to an even stronger ruler. The Queen declares this to be the most effective final use of her nest. But Leonhardt refuses to accept this, questioning what makes her think they will simply let her do as she pleases. He charges forward to stop her. In an instant, an unseen attack strikes Leonhardt. His comrades cry out his name in horror. Leonhardt crashes to the ground. Barely conscious, he recognizes the spell used against him and frantically orders them to heal him immediately. The Queen wonders if she just used Longinus' bullet. She reveals that by devouring her masterpiece, she regained the strength she had dedicated to its growth. As Iris tends to Leonhardt, she realizes the Queen must have eaten a skilled sorcerer to steal their abilities. The Queen confirms this was necessary to ensure she can birth an even stronger ruler. Declaring that the party will now serve as sustenance, the Queen prepares to create her true masterpiece. She takes aim and fires another Longinus bullet. In a desperate move, Eisen leaps forward, screaming the name of his defensive spell, Eisen Bastion. The powerful blast shatters Eisen's shield and sends him flying. Watching her tank get so easily defeated, Iris is filled with despair, wondering what they could possibly do now. Silence falls over the cavern. The Queen declares the fight over. A quiet footstep draws her attention. She turns to see a lone figure emerging from the darkness. She dismisses them as nuisances who never learn. The Queen scoffs, seeing the newcomer as just another pest. From the ground, Lily frantically warns Ammon not to be reckless, as their whole party was no match for the Queen. Before the Queen can finish telling him to flee and get reinforcements, she is interrupted. Ammon vanishes from sight. Ammon effortlessly dodges her attack, leaving the Queen stunned. Enraged, she unleashes a rapid barrage of consecutive Longinus bullets. With incredible speed, Ammon weaves through the deadly projectiles. The Queen and Iris watch in disbelief. Ammon coolly reflects that his speed is beyond simple description. The Queen fumes, calling him a pesky little thing, and noting he would be dead if a single shot connected. Ammon calmly explains that she misunderstands. The person she is attacking is merely an illusion. The Queen is utterly baffled. From the ground, Lily realizes with awe that Ammon is simultaneously using a combination of concealment magic and illusion spells. She understands that he has countless assassination and concealment skills active at once. Ammon explains that the Longinus bullet is a surefire kill spell because by the time an opponent perceives it, they are already dead. He notes it would be meaningless if an opponent could simply nullify an attack they perceive. Confused, the queen asks what he means. He tells her she already knows the answer and to simply look at her chest. A massive, gaping hole erupts from the queen's chest, and she lets out a silent, agonized scream as the reality of her defeat sets in. Stumbling back, the queen gasps, wondering when he could have possibly struck her. Ammon calmly holds up a finger, explaining that this was a genuine Longinus bullet, an elegant and surefire one-hit kill. A few minutes earlier, at the Brim Cross Magic Guild's secondary headquarters, a high-ranking official sits at his desk. He leans forward, his attention fixed on a crystal ball displaying the distant battle. He muses on the opportunity to witness a fight involving the Crimson Banner. He considers them one of the few adventure parties who could rival his own power, especially with an Eastern ninja among them. With a smirk, the official decides he cannot afford to miss this spectacle. He considers them one of the only groups who could hope to assassinate him, so he cannot let his guard down. The scene cuts back to the aftermath of Ammon's devastating attack. With a final thud, the queen's body hits the ground. Ammon looks on with a smirk, his work complete. Iris stares, her face a mask of utter shock. The queen lies dead, a massive hole in her chest, her final word a gasp of confusion. Iris screams in disbelief, questioning the intense power of his Longinus bullet, which was far beyond the spell she knew. She couldn't even discern if he was using illusion or concealment magic, let alone how he kept so many spells active at once. She reflects that such a feat is not humanly possible. The mana consumption alone would fry a normal mage's brain. And yet, Ammon stands there looking completely relaxed, as if it were nothing special. Iris concludes that Ammon is like a being from a different dimension. The overwhelming display of power is so absurd that all she can do is laugh. Ammon approaches his fallen comrade, Leonhardt. Leonhardt coughs, looking up at his savior. Ammon casts a powerful healing spell, Seraphim Heal, on Leonhardt's wound. Ammon casually chides Leonhardt for his usual recklessness, telling him to rest for now. Leonhardt, still recovering, begins to speak. Ammon turns away, stating that there is something else he needs to do. A butterfly-shaped communication drone hovers before him. He announces that he is aware important leaders are watching, and from this point on, he will be addressing them directly. His face glitches on the broadcast as he prepares to share a few words with his worldwide audience. Ammon is fully aware he is being broadcast and has preemptively applied cognitive disruption magic. This way, he believes, the imperial nobles watching will not be able to identify him. With a smirk, he thinks to himself that it's time to put on a grand show of deception. The broadcast reaches the Valdian kingdom, where people watch in a state of clamor. At the Royal Council Executive Board, a member wonders if that was a Longinus bullet, but another insists its power far exceeded anything they've seen. The broadcast is also seen in the holy city of Lumeria. At the Holy Knight headquarters, the members are in an uproar, demanding to know what is happening. One young knight admits that even he, though unlearned in magic, cannot begin to comprehend the events. An oracle gazes into her crystal, admitting that even she is unable to understand what she is seeing. She theorizes that perhaps this human is actually a divine being. The broadcast is also being watched in the greater commercial state of Chaldea. A merchant asks Sir Lucas, a world-renowned grand swordsman, for his opinion on the man they're watching. Lucas bluntly calls the figure a monster through and through. The merchant then asks what Lucas would do as his bodyguard. Lucas confesses he would not fight, but would instead try to run away with his boss, admitting that escape itself might not even be possible. In the Facilia Empire, a noble shouts in shock that the Crimson Banner has been defeated. His companion ignores him, staring intently at the screen, feeling he's seen the man before. He racks his brain, certain of the familiarity, but unable to place when or where they met. The memory remains just out of reach, as if clouded by a fog. Then the figure on the screen speaks, introducing himself as Ammon of the Sorcerers of White Porcelain. Ammon explains that he has divided his soul into multiple beings, and that his audience may think of them as the man they already know. Surrounded by ethereal copies of himself, he declares that they are all in fact Ammon. The younger noble exclaims that he now understands, the man is Sir Ammon. He explains to his shocked companion that he recognized him because he is a shard of Sir Ammon's soul. The other noble questions how Ammon could have truly split his soul into multiple beings. An idea begins to form in his mind. He recalls the legend of the 10-soul demon king of hell, Zerva Grandius. The analyst noble explains that this demon king possesses a divine artifact that lets him create copies of himself and is incredibly powerful even without it. His companion shouts in horror, realizing the implication that Sir Ammon must be using the artifact of a demon king of hell. However, the analyst doubts a demon king would simply allow Ammon to use such a powerful artifact. The analyst posits a terrifying alternative. What if Ammon killed the demon king and took the artifact for himself? The other noble shudders at the very thought. He mutters that it cannot be, that it isn't possible. However, he grits his teeth and concedes that, given Ammon's current state, it's terrifyingly possible that he actually succeeded. The analyst flinches as Ammon announces he will now speak of his intentions. He states that he, or rather we, the sorcerers of white porcelain, have always had a particular thought. They wondered if there was a way to use their great strength and position to improve the lives of people across the globe. Having gained the ability to split themselves and move freely, they have finally come to a decision. Ammon declares his decision to demand the cooperation of all organizations worldwide to create peace. This includes royalty, aristocrats, the Adventurers Guild, religious factions, and the Holy Knights. He adds that diplomatic envoys and the world's great trading companies are also included, with no exceptions. With fiery determination, Ammon proclaims his desire to connect the entire world, calling it his declaration of will as the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild. He concludes his greeting and bids them farewell. The broadcast cuts out. The nobles are left in shock, realizing Ammon's ambition extends beyond their empire to the entire world. The noble is left wondering just how far Ammon's plans truly stretch. Back at the Brimcross headquarters, the official's crystal ball shatters as the broadcast ends. Sweat drips from his face as he stammers in shock. He collapses in his chair, muttering Ammon's name repeatedly. The official convulses violently, blood pouring from his mouth as he twitches uncontrollably, his mind seemingly broken by what he has just witnessed. With a clap of his hands, a man with dark hair appears, apologizing for taking over the party's broadcast and offering the healing magic as an apology. Iris marvels at the human's power, awed by his presence. She realizes that despite being able to see him, she cannot sense his presence at all. Leonhardt agrees, observing that the man is both there and not there at the same time. Iris is thrilled, realizing he's using an ability beyond her comprehension. Leonhardt addresses the man, mistakenly identifying him as the formidable commander-in-chief, Sir Ammon. A wounded party member, still on the ground, corrects him, stating that the man before them is not Sir Ammon. Confused, Leonhardt asks who he is then. The mysterious man smirks, greeting the adventurers with a familiar name, telling Sir Cedric that it has been quite some time. The broadcast of his actions continues to ripple outwards, reaching even the darkest corners of the world. The scene shifts to the fiery landscape of hell. A female attendant watches the events unfold, remarking that she'd only meant to pass the time by peeking into the human realm. Demon King Baal is captivated, declaring the human's display as most impressive. He demands to know who this Ammon is, and his attendant explains he is the Magic Guild's commander-in-chief and successor to the late Cedric. The name Cedric catches Baal's attention, recalling him as the human who fought his grandson, Abaddon, to a draw. The revelation that this impressive human, Ammon, is Cedric's successor leaves the Demon King utterly astonished. Baal admits that seeing Ammon's fighting style makes him understand how a human could fight his grandson to a tie. Unwilling to be satisfied with a mere broadcast, he immediately orders his attendant to send for an envoy. The Demon King's blood is set ablaze with excitement. The attendant quickly departs to carry out his command. Baal calms himself, acknowledging that Ammon is still only human. He contemplates whether this human is a fool to be dismissed or a foe to be cautious of. Or perhaps he wonders Ammon could be a reliable friend to fight alongside in the upcoming battle against the gods. Meanwhile, back at the Brimcross Magic Guild's secondary headquarters, the fallout from the broadcast begins. The real Ammon slams his fist down in frustration. Breathing heavily, he mutters that he can't believe what has happened. He declares that this is the lowest possible point of his entire life. Ammon fumes, realizing this is all Cedric's fault. First, he was forced to antagonize nobles and monsterkind. Now his shade is using his name to pick fights with every faction in the world. He screams in frustration, wondering just how far his old master's convoluted plan will go while he does whatever he wants in Ammon's name. He realizes that his shade's diplomatic style is to give a massive middle finger to anyone he considers a villain, and now all that animosity will be directed at him. Seeing no advantage in remaining commander-in-chief, he grabs his bags, declaring that he was forced into this. He bids a final, bitter farewell to Cedric. He dashes for the door. As he runs, Ammon recalls a strategist's advice. If all else fails, retreat. He plans to hide in the countryside until the chaos subsides, but he crashes headfirst into a newly appeared door. A voice remarks on his pleasant mood as the door creaks open. Ammon looks up in shock, realizing with horror what this door is. Ammon recognizes the figure emerging from the portal as Lady Mephistopheles. She smirks, telling him his chance to escape is long gone. When a bewildered Ammon asks what she means, she explains that as part of the demon realm's commercial state, information naturally finds its way to them. It seems his shade's grand maneuver has attracted the interest of a certain troublesome elder. Mephistopheles identifies the elder as Demon King Baal, Abaddon's grandfather, and one of the most influential of the 72 demon kings of hell. She informs Ammon that an envoy is on their way with a simple demand. Baal wants him to come to the combat arena between the demon realm of hell and the human realm. There he must prove his strength in a battle to the death against Baal's trusted aide. Ammon demands to know why. Mephistopheles explains that decades ago, a mere human, Sir Cedric, fought Baal's grandson to a standstill, a feat the Demon King was skeptical of. Now a shade of Cedric's disciple has displayed incredible strength to the world and to hell. Thus, Lord Baal intends to verify that strength by having his aide duel the main essence of that disciple, Ammon himself. Ammon is floored, protesting that he had nothing to do with that battle. Mephistopheles adds that there is a sufficient reward. Baal swears on his name to guarantee the freedom of Ammon's shade. Ammon retorts that he had nothing to do with it, so there's no merit for him. However, Mephistopheles tempts him, suggesting that if he wins, he could gain a formidable ally in Lord Baal, a prize that Ammon, the sorcerer of white porcelain, could certainly use. Ammon asks who this trusted aide is. Mephistopheles reveals him to be Volga Diesel, Hell's thunderclap warden, who managed to leave a significant battle scar on Sir Cedric. Ammon is horrified, realizing he has no hope of winning against someone that powerful. Mephistopheles agrees, stating plainly that he has no hope of winning, and that Lord Baal never goes back on his word. She confirms there is no escape, he will be taken to the battle arena. Ammon desperately asks what happens if he loses the battle. With a cruel smile, Mephistopheles reminds him that it is a battle to the death. Defeated, Ammon slumps to the floor. He wonders if this is how he meets his end, squeezed for every last drop of usefulness by Cedric's schemes. Mephistopheles leans over Ammon, telling him not to despair, as he has yet to grasp her true reason for being there. She reminds him of when she lent him the Necronomicon and other grimoires. She recalls her specific instruction to keep the 4 grimoires, the necessary documents to form a pact with the King of Hell, on his person at all times. Leaning in close, her face inches from his, Lady Mephistopheles offers a final, tantalizing reminder. She tells him that they at the Astaroth business nation are always ready to be of service. Ammon recoils in disbelief at Mephistopheles' proposal that he form a pact with Astaroth, a king of hell. As he processes the shocking offer, Mephistopheles simply smirks. A low rumble begins to shake the room, heralding an ominous arrival from outside. Suddenly, the sky above the city tiers open into a swirling, lightning-filled vortex. Ammon stares in wide-eyed shock at the sudden disturbance. Chaos erupts in the streets below, with people crying out in confusion. Mephistopheles seems pleased, noting with impeccable timing that Lord Baal's envoy has arrived. Ammon can only utter a stunned "what?" Mephistopheles explains that this arrival is both his opponent and Lord Baal's trusted aide. With a wicked grin, she announces the arrival of Volga Diesel, the thunderclap warden. A dark figure begins to emerge from the portal in the sky. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the vortex, causing the sky itself to look as if it's been split open. The citizens below scream in terror, urging each other to run for their lives. An old man looks up in horror, wondering if this is the return of the dark calamity. His young grandson curiously asks what that is. The old man, with a grim expression, begins to tell a story from long ago. He speaks of a time after the gods had sealed the demons away in another realm. The grandfather recounts how one day the sky turned black as midnight. In the following moment, the skies split open. Through this crevice, the forward army of the kings of hell descended upon the world, an event later known as the Dark Calamity. The young boy listens, trembling with fear. He explains that in just 7 days, demons overran the earth and wiped an entire kingdom off the map. He continues his tale of destruction, Castles burned, the earth split, and royal families were lost to war. Ever since, people have feared the daylight sky losing its luster, as it would signal a second coming of the dark calamity and the return of the demons. His story ends as the present-day panic intensifies, with people screaming that the demons' advance army is coming. The boy, trying to find hope, reminds his grandfather that Lord Ammon is in the city, which should mean they will be okay. The old man agrees that Ammon is humanity's strongest warrior. However, his face is filled with despair as he adds that even Ammon is no match for them. Back in the room, Ammon and Mephistopheles watch the events unfold. He realizes Mephistopheles was telling the truth about Volga wounding Cedric. He can feel that the demon's strength is on a completely different dimension, far beyond what any human could hope to compete against. Ammon's own power flares in reaction to the immense presence. Suddenly, Ammon is caught in a powerful binding spell. He cries out as he realizes his body is moving on its own. He's yanked through the air and crashes through the window as Mephistopheles notes that Volga captured him before they could make a contract. Mephistopheles chuckles, deciding to use this chance to make preparations for the confrontation between Ammon and Volga. She intends to make the utmost use of the situation to set the stage. Borrowing the connection from a crystal orb, she begins her preparations. She dispatches a winged familiar, urging it to go and do its best. The familiar is sent to capture Lord Ammon's exploits, as he is brought face to face with the demonic Volga. Down below, the townsfolk see the spectacle and cry out in awe, believing Lord Ammon has appeared to stop the demon's invasion. The crowd marvels at a halo of light appearing behind Ammon, remarking that he looks like an angel. Volga explains the situation to Ammon, but internally he's confused as to why Ammon allowed himself to be bound, while Ammon trembles in terror. Volga muses that if Cedric failed to properly train his disciple, then his lord's doubts will never be cleared. Ammon protests, screaming that he has no reason to fight. Volga dismisses his opinion as irrelevant, stating that his lord always sees his will through. He warns Ammon not to even think of escaping. Volga threatens that if he runs, Lord Baal's army will chase him to the ends of hell. He then reveals that he has only come as an envoy, a shadow manifested in the human realm. With a formal bow, he states that he looks forward to meeting Ammon in the flesh. He bids farewell until their battle to the death before vanishing. The crowd erupts in a massive cheer, shouting that the demon's envoy bowed to Lord Ammon and ran away. They believe Ammon caused the entire demon army to retreat without lifting a single finger, hailing his incredible power. As the crowd chants his name over and over, the sheer shock of the situation is too much for Ammon, and his soul literally leaves his body. He hangs limply in the air, wondering if the sound of the crowd is a sign that his end has finally come. Elsewhere, Lord Baal watches the broadcast resume on his crystal orb. He laughs, impressed at how Ammon assumed an angelic form and drove away the thunderclap warden, declaring the human to be one hell of a piece of work. In the holy city of Lumeria's grand temple, the supreme priest, Noah Seraphiz, contemplates the news that Ammon has driven back an envoy from a king of hell. A subordinate rushes in, proclaiming that there is even more to the story. The church member reports that recordings show Ammon possessing wings of light. He excitedly declares them to be angels' wings, as described in the Bible. Noah sternly cuts him off, telling him not to make such statements lightly. The man quickly apologizes, as Noah reminds him that her previous suggestion of Ammon's divinity was merely an assumption. Noah explains that both kings of hell and saints are recognized existences in the Bible. She clarifies that while saints spread God's teachings, kings of hell are a trial for humanity, but the title of saint does not currently apply to Ammon. Her subordinate listens in shock. With her mind made up, she gives an order to relay her message to every branch of the church. She announces her plan to establish a miracle certification bureau within 1 week. The subordinate asks in alarm what she intends to do. Noah explains that if Ammon is truly a vessel of their God, then all is well. However, if he is not, she declares they must punish the pretender for making a mockery of their God. The real Ammon is in a state of sheer panic, hyperventilating. He collapses, terrified at the memory of Volga's overwhelming mana. He is convinced that if he is forced to fight the demon, he will most certainly be killed. Mephistopheles appears before Ammon with a knowing smile, observing that he seems to be in quite a predicament. Ammon, desperate, asks if it's true that her lord Astaroth can do something about his crisis. Mephistopheles confidently confirms they can help, stating they wouldn't have offered a contract without the ability to deliver. She reminds him that their trade is built on trust. However, she adds that with King Baal involved, The request is nearly impossible and asks if he understands what she's implying. Ammon timidly asks if the price to pay will be tremendous. With a smile, Mephistopheles confirms that the price is indeed tremendous. Ammon, shuddering, asks what specifically she desires. She proposes a deal with a check as blank as white porcelain. Ammon is stunned by the term blank check. However, he quickly rationalizes that this must mean he can pay for it with money. Ammon thinks he can use his illegal savings to cover the cost, but Mephistopheles clarifies that blank check was a metaphor and they do not desire money. She reveals their true price, his soul and his body. And as a final blow, she adds that they also desire his future. With a terrifying, ecstatic grin, Mephistopheles declares that he will be required to hand over all three as the price of the contract. The sheer horror of the demand causes Ammon's glasses to crack. Mephistopheles tells him to take his time to consider, as the final say is his. Ammon meekly asks for a slight discount on the price. She flatly refuses, stating the price cannot be lowered by even a strand of hair. Trapped, Ammon panics, realizing he must either accept a fate worse than death or be killed by Volga if he refuses. He desperately wonders what he is supposed to do. Overwhelmed by the impossible choice, Ammon slams his head to the floor, screaming for Cedric to take responsibility for the mess he is in. The scene shifts to Alfred, the man impersonating Ammon, who smirks confidently. In the Duran Bardo mine network, his companion uses ice magic to fight off a horde of creatures. A member of the party calls out to Thylos, announcing she's finished her part. Thylos, standing atop a pile of defeated giant ants, reports that he is also done, having exterminated the ants that escaped the mines. Alfred looks on, satisfied that they've managed to stop the stampede caused by the queen ant's last-ditch effort. Lily, a cat-eared girl, leaps down to join them, exclaiming that they are amazing. She gushes that while she knew Alfred was powerful, every member of his party is incredible. Alfred asks how she managed to leave the mines, and Lily explains she used her ninjutsu skills, but the others are still inside. Lily explains that the others are stuck because Deathblaze used up most of the air near the entrance while burning the ants. Lily marvels at the power of legendary adventurers, but Alfred compliments her party, the Crimson Banner, as well. Lily then says she's been wondering about something, and Alfred prompts her to ask. Lily reveals she knows they aren't the real Ammon, and worries that using his name will cause big trouble for him. Alfred confirms her fears, stating that a demon king of hell, Baal, is already making his move. Surprised, Lily asks if that means he's going to help the real Ammon. Alfred simply replies, naturally. With a cruel, predatory grin, Alfred shatters her expectation, declaring that he won't be helping him at all. His chilling words hang in the air, leaving the real Ammon's fate in question. At the Adventurers Guild, a private banquet is in full swing, celebrating the heroes who defeated the giant nethersteel bugs. The hall is filled with the clamor of feasting adventurers. As Alfred's party enters, they are immediately recognized as the. Lily notices the attention, nervously asking if everyone is staring at them. Whispers confirm that people know they are the Shades of Ammon, the commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild. Deathblaze calmly notes that their connection to Ammon is becoming public knowledge. However, Iris of the Crimson Banner fumes, resentful that even with her party present, all the praise is directed towards the. Drunk and annoyed, Iris complains about the Gawkers, grumbling that Alfred is the only one worthy of her recognition. She tries to feign indifference, insisting that as an adult, it doesn't bother her at all. Her act isn't convincing, and she soon lectures the younger party members on respecting their elders. Just as the tension rises, a dwarven messenger bursts in, apologizing for the interruption. The messenger announces he has a formal message from Duran Bardo for both the Sorcerer of White Porcelain and the Crimson Banner. Iris mutters in annoyance that Alfred's party was mentioned first again, but Thylos tells her to stop. Alfred calmly asks what the message is. The messenger explains that it is a reward for exterminating the giant nethersteel bugs. The messenger invites both parties to a celebration banquet at the royal castle. This announcement stuns the onlookers, who realize the adventurers are getting an audience with the king. Deathblaze casually recalls that this was their original goal for the trip. Internally, Alfred confirms that this is a crucial step toward his objective of mass-producing weapons. However, he knows they have not yet earned enough trust to make his true demands. Lily notices Alfred's evil expression and asks what's wrong, while he considers the delicate political situation with the dwarves. He dismisses her, claiming he was just thinking about a suitable reward for their efforts. Lily, surprised he's thinking of worldly things, asks if he'll request a weapon or money. With a sinister smile, Alfred replies, "Neither, I would like human waste." His companions are stunned into silence, questioning if they heard him correctly. Deathblaze bluntly clarifies that he means poop and piss. The group recoils in horror, confirming they hadn't misheard his bizarre request. Lily scolds Deathblaze for being so gross during a meal. Alfred explains that he wishes to mass-produce a weapon, but lacks the trust to make such a demand, so as preparation. As Alfred continues his grotesque explanation, Lily begs him to stop, and Iris looks ready to be sick. Far away, a convoy travels through a barren landscape. Inside, General Levitain of the 100 Generals contemplates Ammon's recent global declaration. Levitain considers Ammon's public wish to forge diplomatic relations with humanity. While most monster kind would dismiss it as trivial human affairs, she believes she is the only one who understands his true goal. Knowing he has relations with the kings of hell, she concludes with certainty that Ammon plans to overthrow them. Levitain realizes Ammon's objective is to unite humanity and eliminate the monster kind. She knows there is no time to waste. Her servant, Sigurd, approaches with concern. Sigurd notices the general is sweating and asks if she is all right. Levitain reassures Sigurd she is fine, then coolly points out a stain on the handkerchief her servant offered. Sigurd jolts in panic. She apologizes profusely for failing in her duties, but Levitain tells her there is no need. The general acknowledges that she is the reason Sigurd has been so overworked and sleep-deprived lately. A flashback shows a fallen comrade as Levitain states that Sigurd is the only servant she has left. Sigurd insists the general shouldn't feel bad, blaming those who offended her. Levitain correctly guesses that her servant is feeling pressured and overworked. With a wide smile, Levitain declares they will procure extra helpers at their destination. Sigurd is confused by the idea of extra helpers. Levitain reveals their goal to reach the ruins deep within Duranbardo's mines and release the seal of the primordial beast. Since she doesn't know the layout of the haphazardly dug mines, she needs guides, and she believes they will work just fine. She tells a confused Sigurd that she has the perfect group in mind. With a predatory grin, Levitain names her target, the Crimson Banner, the adventuring party that led the extermination of the bugs. Back outside the royal castle, the adventurers are met with unexpected news. Iris is shocked to learn that the banquet has been delayed. Outside the castle gates, Iris demands to know the cause of the delay. The dwarven official apologizes for the short notice, explaining that Duranbardo has an urgent quest for the Crimson Banner. They are being asked to guide a certain individual through the mine network and see to their every need. Iris angrily asks why they must act as tour guides and for whom. The official reveals it is a direct request from General Levitain of the 100 Generals. Thylos is stunned, unable to believe it. Alfred voices his concern about serving monster kind who are known to kill servants on a whim. Thylos, however, realizes the gravity of the situation, questioning if they even have the option to refuse. The official confirms that Duranbardo is in a precarious situation with no room for negotiation. Thylos grimly states that if they were to refuse, the monster kind would see it as defiance and punish Duranbardo. Alfred quickly pieces it together, realizing Levitain has come to make use of the primordial beast. He smirks, remarking that it's just the kind of plan a monster would devise. Alfred coolly declares that he understands the situation. Alfred agrees to accompany them, seeing this as a perfect opportunity to take down one of the 100 generals while also retrieving an item he left with the primordial beast. To him, it doesn't sound like a bad deal.